live calculation. If you're a member on this channel and you send me some questions, I will respond with a video. This was a video request. What we're looking at is going to be conduit fill. So the first thing, before we're going to go straight to how many wires we can fit in the conduit, we need to know what we're trying to accomplish. So let's just say we've got a 100 amp service, and we're not going to do the 83% rule. The 83% rule says that if you're residential, we can use the 90° C column. So we could actually go over here. If we were aluminum, we could use this column here, take this number, multiply it by 0.83, and any wire that's above 83 amps, because we use 100 amps, so we'll be able to use number 3 for our service, pretty much. And if we go back here to our table that they put in and they put out, we're actually not going to have the table because of 2017. They take this table in and they take it out all the time. But you would be able to use a smaller wire. So we're actually going to go based off of the 75° C. We're not going to use the 83% rule. And there's one other thing you got to do when you're using this table. Haha, what's up, Joshua? There's one thing you got to do when you're using this table. And you got to pay attention to your standard fuse sizes. So if we go here to 240.6, 240.6 here. This is going to have our standard ratings here. When you fall on a standard size, you cannot go to the next up. So, for example, if you're commercial, right, 90 amps right there is a standard size. If you are commercial and you're not using the 83% rule, I see this all the time and have to write it up. I'm trying to get back to our table here without passing it. It's pretty easy to pass. We passed it. 310 dot. I'm going to use 310.15 B16. They keep changing this table too. You're going to see here that because 95 is a standard size, a lot of people think that they can use number 2 aluminum here. And if we slide over here, you're going to see number 2, you're going to go off of the termination. So your breakers are typically rated at 75° C. They try to put a 100 amp breaker on number 2 aluminum all the time. And you flat out cannot do that because 90 is a standard size. So when you fall on a standard size, you have to stick with that size. If you were 85 amps, you go up to 90. If you're 95 amps, you could go up to 100. Because you're 90, you have to stay at 90. So if you're using number 2 aluminum on commercial, you have to put it on a 90 amp breaker. Okay, so let's say we're going to use number 1, or the question was number 2s. So let's do 3 number 2s, which is good for, depending if he's commercial or residential. We're just going to go based off 90 amps here, and we're going to go to 250.122, which is going to be how we size our ground. The table. 100 amps. Number 8 or number 6. Okay, so he's using copper. So he's going for, how many amps you going for, buddy? No, you going all with copper? Because a number 4 ground is a lot. Because I saw you're trying to use SCR. but you can't put SER underground. And I can show you where you can't put SER. I was trying not to call you out, but since you're on here, I'm going to show you that we can't use SER underground. So there's rigid metal. You go to your 300s here, and this is all of your material types. So if we go, there's an NM, that's actually Romex right there. There's IG, flat cable. So we gotta find SE here, service entrance. You're here to uses permitted, right? And uses permitted is almost a .10. So no matter what we're looking at, we're gonna look at a .10. And then .12 is usually uses not permitted. So we're going to go to .12 over here, uses not permitted. And it's going to say here for interior wiring for above ground. There it is there. Service shall not be used under the following conditions. Subject to physical damage underground with or without a raceway. So use is not permitted underground with or without a raceway. Now there's an exception here, interestingly enough. Yeah. What's up, Wilderness Preacher? There's an exception here, if you look in temporary installations, that specifically allows us to use it underground, but only for temporary installations. So I don't think you're going to be doing temporary. So, yeah, can't do SER. What you can do is THWN. And the W in the WN, THWN, that's the wet. The N is nylon, the H is, don't get me lying here. We know the W is wet. So THHN, sorry, I'm looking through the camera doing this, is not going to be wet. So let's look at our options here. How many amps are you going for, buddy? Because now that we're not going to use a multi-cable assembly, we can probably save you some wire. THHN-2. I would have to look that up myself, man. I usually see THWN, but we can find that in the conductors for general wiring here. We go here to the 300s. Somewhere here. Hang on. Might be in the 400s for cords. If it's not here. Give me a second. We're going to go here to the 400s for cords, fixture wires. There's your suffixes and your prefixes there, right? So we see here that the see here, H tells you what they're made of. So this is where you get all your T. I had to find it specifically. If you say it can be used underground, that's fine for wet. What? How many amps are you going for? No, you can't use USE. Wait, USE? That would be underground. Yeah, I think so. Let me see here. I would imagine U would be underground. I gotta find it in here. UF, USE. Uses permitted. USE, service identified for underground use, having moisture resistant covering, but not required to have flame retardant covering. So I would say yes. If you got USE, you can put it underground. Yeah, you can use that. So you've got direct barrel on USE. It will tell you in the instructions specifically. This is both of them here, and what I'm seeing is mainly about SE because it's got a more strict installation. See, it just says SE shall not be used under the following. USE, here it is here. Okay. Underground service entrance cable shall not be used under the following. So, for interior right, for above ground, except for USE cable emerges from the ground and is terminated in an enclosure at an outdoor location. And the cable is protected in accordance with 300.5. I can show you that too. And is aerial cable. So depending on what you're doing, as soon as you come out of the ground, you need to protect it. So it looks like, yeah, you don't need a raceway. USC cable emerges from the ground. It is terminated in an enclosure and is protected 300.5D. 300.5D says that it shall be sleeved up a certain height. Let's look at it. 300.5 A, B, D. Protection from damage 1 through 4. Emerging from grade here, we're going to see it needs to be protected all the way until 8 feet. So yeah, you can put it in a conduit, emerge it from the ground, and the conduit's going to have to be as deep as 24 inches. I can temporarily use SCR with while I order my THWN-2 or USE. I'm a major conduit fan. I do not like direct burial, just wanted to know, but I like having the Genius at my fingertips. Nice. Yeah, so you can, based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're going to go 24 inches, so just put your conduit down 24 inches and then come straight into your box is what you got to do. Underground service conductors, but you're not technically service conductors. You're using service material because it's USE, underground service, but specifically service conductors is reserved for something where you don't have overcurrent protection. So you are technically a feeder using service rated wires. So don't get that mixed up. But just because you're using service conductors, it's not talking about the type of material. It's talking about being before the overcurrent protection. That's what determines the service. So that's what you got to do. And then you also, it says 1 through 4. So you got to be all of these 1 through 4, not 1, 2, 3, or 4. You got to be all of these. So you also got to emerge in Schedule 80 PVC or equivalent rigid, EMT, not Schedule 40. Got to be Schedule 80 PVC. That's what it says. Seems like overkill. And we're going to have an LB about 6-inch height, Schedule 40, half-inch end to end. You can do Schedule 40 and probably get away with it just because of what it is, man. But the code says Schedule 80, just so you know. And this is, yes, you can phase your number 2s white. You could do the last little bit in Schedule 80 and save you some money. The inspectors really got to know their stuff to call that little three foot section of pipe emerging out of the grade. You know what I mean? But the code is the code. So there's that. You can, and I'm going to show you why you can phase it. There's a couple of reasons why we can phase it green. One, you're larger than number 4. So let's look at this. I get this question about a bajillion times a day. So let me find it, because I can find it in 200.6, right? Let's go to 200.6. That's 210. No wonder I can't find it. 200.6 right here. The use of insulation of a white or gray color with 3 continuous. That's 7. Hang on. They cut the code in half. Here it is here. We've got number 6 or smaller, and then you got number 4 or larger, okay? When you're number 4 or larger, it talks about using tape. Where is it here? At the time of installation, the distinctive white or gray marking at its terminations, this marking shall encircle the conductor insulation. You're not going to find this up here. It's just not there. It says it must be continuous white or continuous gray. Blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't say anything about marking until you get to number 4 or larger. So this is where the code gets kind of crazy, because it doesn't flat out say you can't do it. It just says what you can do when you're number 4 or larger, what you can do when you're number 6 or larger. But because, we'll see you later, Renegades. Hey, I sent that box to you, Renegade, by the way. You got a whole bunch of goodies coming your way. It's like an 11-pound box. Okay, so this verbatim here is in Article 250. So if we go here to 250, in the beginning of 250 somewhere here, gotta find it. That's grounding electrodes. This thing keeps trying to flip on me. There's permitted. It's here somewhere, because this is. We're still in grounding electrodes. We got to find smaller than number 6. Grounding electrode conductor smaller than number 6. Continuous. Nope. That is not it. Hang on a second. We're still in grounding electrodes. We got to find. Yeah. There's bonding, material. I can never remember what this code is specifically. Every time I look for it. Okay, identification of the equipment grounding conductors. It's pretty much verbatim of the 200.6. So, equipment grounding conductors 4 or larger shall comply. And that's where it says permanently identified equipment grounding conductor at each end of every point. But you notice we're number 4 or larger. So if you're number 4 or larger, you can tape green or white. If you're multi-conductor cable, that's your exception. So if you are in just like an SER or something, and it comes in a factory sheath or something, then you can tape away. So this is what it says here, where the conditions of maintenance supervision at the time of installation shall be permitted to be permanently identified as equipment grounding conductors at each end of every point, where the conductors are accessible by the following means. So that's where you can, if you're multi-conductor cable. Enjoy the tactics box, nice. Okay, so let's go to the sizing here. So to find this chapter, what we're looking for is chapter 9. So if you're having trouble finding it, just go to the very end of chapter 8. We're in the 840s there. And keep flipping. until you find your chapter 9 tables. A couple of rules here, right? 24 inches here is reserved. That's a nipple, 24 inches. 60% is good for nipples. If you're more than 24 inches, you got to use the 40% fill. And that is going to be, let's see here. Where's that rule? That's the 60%. It will tell you to use the 40 here somewhere. It tells you in the table too, because you're 60% for nipples there, but if you're over 2 wires, you're in the 40. So it tells you in the table too. We're not a nipple. We're more than 24 inches. We're going over here 40%. So if we go here to schedule 80 PVC, right there, schedule 80 PVC, and we're trying to see what we can fit. So the first thing we got to do, we're going to go a couple of pages over, and we're going to find the wire that Josh was going to use. You got THWN2, and you got THHN. I think he's talking about THWN2, which is fine. We've got 3 number 2s and a number 4 ground. So we're going to go over here. Inches squared is what we're using. You go down this column. We got 0.1158, 0.1158 right there. I'm going to write that down. 0.1158. 0.1158. And we're going to multiply that by 3 because we got 3 of them. Somebody do the math on that. Tell me what that is. And then we're going to go here to 4. We got 0.0824 for number 4. 0.0824, and we got 1 of those. So we got 0.3474, and then we're going to add, take this down here, and we're going to add that 0.0824. So we got 3.474, and we got 0.0824 is 0.4298. Sorry, that's the 2. I'm looking through the camera while I'm writing this. Make sure you guys can see it. Now we're going to take that 0.4298, go back here and see what conduit we can fit it in. 0.4298. Remember, we're 40%. We're not 60%. Not packing this thing. We're at 40%. And you can fit that sucker 0.495, 0.298. Looks like you can cram that in 1 1/4 to me. 0.4298. Have to subtract it. Hang on. What did we say? 0.495. Is that an O? 0.495? Okay, that's your 1 1/4 there. I think I'm going to do an 1 1/2 schedule 80. So an 1 1/2 schedule 80 would be 0.684. What was that? 0.684. There you go. So yeah, it's less. It'll fit. So that's how you do that. Yeah, and that's actually a journeyman test question. That's a a master's enough room to jelly it, don't have to jam it. Nice. No worries, man. Yeah, let me show you that temporary installation thing. So what is that? That's 690, I think, right? 690, does that sound right? Let's try 690. 690 is solar. 590. So one of these. Is it 590? Yeah, it is 590. 590 temporary installations. So you're gonna see it's good for 90 days, right? That's where you get your temporary rules from. The feeders here, SE cable shall be permitted to be used in any dwelling building, any height limitation. There we go. SE cable shall be permitted to be installed in a raceway in an underground installation. Right there. There's your permission right there. Temporary installation. Install it underground. Not a lot of people know about that. Not a lot of inspectors know about that. You get a lot of inspectors that'll come to your job. They'll fail you for doing that, and then they'll make you pull it out. And the electrician didn't do his diligence to show the inspector this. Yeah, 590. And the electrician's pulling it out. Inspector thinks that he did good. Electrician pulled it out, and then nobody even knew that they could have had it the whole time. That happens a lot. We go back to 310. There it is there. THWN2 right there. Flame retardant, moisture, and heat resistant thermoplastic. So that's where you get all of your what the suffixes and prefixes mean. Oh, that's awesome, Jamie. There's your UF, there's your THHN. You'll see there, dry and damp locations only. So, there you go. That's 310.104A continued right there. Mommy. She's not out here, baby. She's not here. I'll show you something right now at Lowe's. It's pretty cool. What? You can get this, they call it lawn and garden rail kit, but it can be for anything. 24 bucks right now at Lowe's. I bought 2 of them. So, there you go. I'm scared to open my 23. I've got a 23. It stays in the office, dude. I don't even want to start with it. I'm not looking forward We will we'll just leave that there. Okay. That's all we got. Short and sweet. Any other questions? You know about the 83% rule, right, Josh? I just got a 100 amp Eaton main breaker meter combo load center. Wow. That's ridiculous. Let's look at the 83% rule here. We actually do an example here. This is for single phase dwellings, which is essentially a house here. You can see here, talks about the 83% rule for a service rated 100 amps to 400 amps. The service conductor supplying the entire load shall be permitted to have an ampacity not less than 83%. So what that would look like is if we took 200 amps times 0.83. So we do 200 amps times 0.83. I think you get 166 if I remember right. Somebody help me out here. And we go here. You can see that 2-aught copper is good for 175. And that's exactly why you can use 2-aught on a 200 amp service. So there you go. Same thing applies. 100 amps, you can use 83. You could use a number 3. No, sorry. You could use a number 2 for a 100 amp breaker on residential aluminum. So there you go. What's going on, Budsville? Just doing some quick calculations. I'll show you guys one more thing before I go, and I'm starting to see this a bunch, because a lot of people are changing out panels, and they're not solar contractors, so they don't know this. And let's say the house used to be a 200 amp whatever, right? This is your main breaker here, and you got your wires that were feeding the breaker, and then you got your bus here. They used to be tapped, so they had some little taps here, and then this went straight from this wire here. This actually comes to your meter. You got your meter, and those wires essentially came straight from your meter, and they fed your main breaker. And they had these little taps. The wire comes out here, and then it went straight to a solar disconnect. And there was fuses in this solar disconnect, whatever they were, call them 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter what they are, 50 amps. They had number 6 here. What I'm seeing a bunch, okay, like a lot, it's a huge problem. They had number 6, I want you to see that. They're putting in a double pole breaker to feed the solar, because when they installed the new panel, they weren't comfortable. They don't know anything about these taps. They're not used to using them. A lot of electricians don't really know how to use them, don't like them, and also, frankly, they're illegal. You can't use the piercing insulation taps anymore. They're not listed for use on the service side. So you've got an impossible situation where they're tapped and you need to connect the solar back. So let me show you why and what to do. So first off, why does the breaker need to be down here? If you're trying to feed your solar, the idea is that you want it on the opposite end of your bus bar. That way, because the solar power, you got solar panels, right? You got your solar array on the roof, and it's going this direction, and it's putting current back to the system. So the idea is they want all this current to kind of saturate all the way up. If we put this breaker here, the theory is that the electricity would go up here and not down on your other loads. So I'm going to show you this right now where this is, and it's not in the solar code. It's actually in 700.5. 690 is the solar code. 700.5 is the interconnected power production sources. And what we're going to look here is that you got your supply side. We need to find the bus or conductor. Let me make sure I find it here for you. Okay, there's the warning labels. I'm trying to find the beginning of the code. Trying to find the beginning where it starts talking about this, if I can. Pretty much you got to go 120% of the bus. So what it says here, a connection at either end but not both ends of a center-fed panel board in the dwelling shall be permitted. We're taking 125% of the power sources. The output circuit current and rating of the overcurrent device protecting the bus bar does not exceed 120% of the bus bar. Now, what that whole crazy sentence means is if you have a 200 amp bus, this bus is only rated for 200 amps max, okay? If we take 120% of this, and typically you have a 200 amp breaker, okay? You take 120, times 200 equals 40 amps. What this is saying is you can only put a 40 amp back-fed breaker on this max, because you're going to take your 200. If you multiply this, I'm going to show you. Do 1.20 times 200. And what do you get? I can do it here. Hang on. I can do math on. Hang on. Four. You got 240. Sorry if I jumped into there. You got 240, right? So if you take your 240, now what it said, it talked about the rating of the overcurrent device here. What you got to do, you got to take this 240 and you got to subtract it from here, which is 200 amp main breaker. And you wind up with 40 amps. So the biggest breaker that you can have safely here is 40 amps. But if you recall, we needed a 50. And we got electricians putting 50s on here. And that's a bad deal. So that code alone says that 1, it's got to be on the opposite end of the bus bar. 2, it's got to be 120% of the bus, subtract from the main breaker. What the options are is to make this a 150 amp main. On the 200 amp bus bar. That gives you an extra 50 amps because this main breaker is protecting this bus. So if it's 50 amps less allowed to go back through, you're protecting that bus by 50 more amps. So you can subtract your 240 from 150, and it's going to allow you to put a bigger breaker here, is what all that means. But I'm seeing that a bunch because you can't do the line side taps anymore. So you've got an old illegal installation that they don't want to install back. And all the electricians know to do, because they're not solar contractors, is to install a 50 amp breaker here, and it's really, really messing things up because you flat out can't do it. So there you go. We'll do a separate video on that later. But yeah, figured I'd hit it while we were talking about changing out panels and stuff, because that's really relevant. Okay. Well, that's all we got. Appreciate all the support. I think we covered just about everything and then some. Harbor Freight can be good in a pinch, like if you need a special tool that's expensive for once. Yeah. Something like a O2 sensor wrench or something like that. Absolutely. Are PVAC installers licensed electricians? PVAC. PVAC. Photovoltaic? PVAC. PV. PVAC. They should be. They should be. I think anyone with a 10-in-1, if you got a tool bag that looks like this, you're pretty much a certified. I like when I say certified because the term is really licensed. You're a certified electrician, and you can go install solar. That's what it feels like. If you got clients in a 10-in-1, seems like, yeah, photovoltaic AC system. Yeah, they should be electricians. I don't know. I think they got like one master for the whole company, and he bounced between 30 job sites. And then he just got his license, man. They don't really know the code like really well. I only know the code because it's my job. Like, I know where everything is in this book before I turn the page almost. And that's not even because it's my job. That's because I've got kind of like a total recall memory when it comes to things like that. So that definitely helps. But, yeah. Anyway, we're out here. Appreciate all the support. See you guys next one.